We are all built by our life stories, but sometimes the stories we tell ourselves aren't true, kind, or accurate. With the right mindset, we can transform them into stories that inspire and uplift, especially in tough times. At STORYBIT, we uncover the strength and beauty that can arise from adversity. Join us as we explore the lives of guests from all walks of life. Discover why the world is STORYBIT.
Love it. Okay, what's up, everybody? It's game time with Dr. Helen Ross, the one and only. This is the STORYBIT podcast. I don't know if I told you, Helen, that's the name of the podcast, the STORYBIT podcast, because we all have stories that build our lives, and I don't think we should be ashamed of those stories. We should embrace them. Maybe some of them. Well, for me, for sure. But yeah, never mind. I'll fix that up a little bit, but it's good to have you on the podcast. So pumped. Let me give everyone a quick bio. It's not really quick. It'll take about 30 minutes because that's how important Helen is and how awesome she is. So here we go. It is as follows. So Dr. Helen Ross, a trailblazing force in the realm of special education needs and a renowned dyslexia expert. Why are you shaking your head? Which is a
ChatGPT, saccharine point, like I said.
She has a rich background spanning both the independent and public education sectors. Her passion lies in nurturing individuals and organizations within the education and SEN realms, leaving an indelible mark at both local and national levels. This is the worst when you're dyslexic and you're reading bios and you can't read.
No, I feel that.
So she's a former teacher. Helen spent over a decade in the immersive world of school settings. Her unwavering dedication to fostering positive educational environments is deeply rooted in her own journey as a dyslexic individual, granting her unique insight into the transformative power of inclusivity. She's a now sought-after freelance consultant, researcher, and esteemed board member. She channels her authentic message to empower families, schools, and government bodies in the pursuit of an inclusive world. And she's done there. It goes on for multiple paragraphs. I'm not kidding. About 7 more paragraphs. It's pretty rad.
Bonkers.
So let me stop there and say thank you, ChatGPT. But
Yeah.
I found Dr. Helen Ross on LinkedIn, and I noticed some of her posts. I'm like, holy cow, this woman is amazing. I sent her a note, and this was about 8, 9, 10 months ago, and I was, it was a bit, and I'm praying. I'm like, hopefully she can see my little note that I send to her on LinkedIn, because I checked you out on LinkedIn. I read your About Me page and all that stuff, and I was like, this person has done so much. And I've talked about this with other guests on my channel here, show, whatever we call it, about how for some reason in the UK it's a lot more dyslexia. There's a lot more awareness around dyslexia, I feel like, versus the US from what I've seen. And you were really one of the very first individuals that I noticed, and kind of your posts. It was cool. It was rad. And so what happened? I send you a freaking little message on LinkedIn, and then this woman gets back to me and she's like, hey, let's jump on a call. I'm like, what? Because I just said, hey, I'm starting a podcast and some other stuff in the future. I would love to could you answer some of these questions? And I wasn't expecting a phone call. And then you're like, here's my Zoom. Let's do this thing. And then we jumped on a call, and you gave me like 45 minutes of your time, and you're like writing books and you're solving equations because, you're a doctor and stuff. I don't know. And you're doing all these things. And I'm like, man, she's the coolest individual I've ever met. So I'm so pumped to have you on the podcast. How about real quick, you give us your personal in your words.
If you took the bio, like the About Me bit from my LinkedIn, I have to give the credit to my friend Vicky No, she's not Vicky Archer anymore. She's Vicky Outgreneth. I went to school with her, like little school. I've known her since we were 7 or something. She wrote my copy. It's her job. She's like a advertising.
Okay.
I don't really know what she does. Amazing.
Yeah.
She's so clever. And so she wrote that. So Vicky knows me. Obviously, we've known each other for 35 years or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She knows me really well. So thank you, Vicky and ChatGPT.
Thank you, Vicky.
I said to you earlier, like, ChatGPT, it is a bit saccharine sweet to the cynical, grumpy Brits who's like, shut up, I'm not that good. And
I
so
mean, you were cringing. You were cringing the whole time.
I undermine myself every time people, even if it's a bio I've written about myself that's dead short, because I'm always like, no one really cares, which I may be wrong, but that's how I feel. And when people like read about me, I'm just like, who are you talking about? Like, what are you on about? But I'm a lucky so-and-so. Like, I think I always say to people, Dr. Ross, it spells dross. And in British English, if something's a load of dross, it means it's a load of rubbish.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down.
Like
dross.
One of my old colleagues at my little school where I was a SENCO, so I was in charge of sort of helping kids with special needs and making sure they had what as best we could, like their needs were met in class. One of my old colleagues, who was the computer, like the network manager, he was like, dross. Rubbish! He used to yell it across the school, like proper lovely guy. Like there was no getting a big head. And my husband's a doctor as well, so we're both Dr. Ross. Yeah. And he's like organic chemistry or something. He farted around with amino acids. I don't really know. Okay. So I'm always like, well, I use my doctorate, Andrew, and he's like, yeah, but mine's a proper one because it's science. I'm like, sociology? Shut up.
I love that. I don't know what his doctorate's in, but it's something amino acids.
Mine's
I don't know.
Better.
Yeah.
But like mine's clearly better, obviously.
Yeah, come on. 100%. 100%.
Well, I don't know. Andy did something with Lemsip Max. You know, the cold. Do you have Lemsip in America? It's like cold and flu.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's like lemon flavored paracetamol, basically.
Yeah.
He did something to make that have a good shelf life.
Oh, sweet. That's awesome. Good
I don't
Andy.
really know.
I love it. Love me some Andy.
Yeah, he's a patient bloke. He's a patient bloke as my husband. I think that's probably the best bio is I'm a lucky so-and-so. And my husband is, if you had a Venn diagram between brave, stupid, and ridiculous, Andy's the singularity between those three. Like brave, stupid, and patient.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you got a good one. He's got a good one. I bet your house is pretty fun. Did you say that he was dyslexic too?
No, Andy's.
No?
Oh, I don't know. He keeps saying that he wants me to do an assessment for him, but he keeps chickening out every time. So.
I thought I remember hearing you say that, but I guess not. But that's I mean, it's hard.
He's clever.
Yeah.
Don't tell him, but he is clever.
He's clever.
I'm not telling him that. I'm going to copy.
That's awesome. Well, I love it.
Yes, I do SEN stuff. I do dyslexia stuff, and I'm dyslexic, so I have a brain like a goldfish.
Yep. Okay, beautiful. And that's why I reached out. You do a lot, and that's what we want to dive into today. We want to dive into that, want to figure some of that out. I like to, in these episodes, get kind of the good, the bad, the ugly, all the good stuff. But as a kid, understanding how it was growing up, first of all, right? Because there's been some people we've had on this episode that, this channel where, man, it's pretty crazy growing up, right? Especially, when you have, it's so cool for me to see so far in the interviews that I've done, the episodes, and then comparing it to my life and what I'm used to, of if you have somebody growing up that can be a good mentor and love you and support you and be like, hey, you might think you're stupid because you suck at school, or maybe you don't suck at school. Maybe you just can't speak well, or maybe all these, whatever it is, right? Like you make up your own words or the limiting beliefs, but you're brilliant. You're super smart. You're awesome. Keep it going. Be happy. And then I've had a few people that didn't have any of that growing up, and their lives have been so crazy to watch. And I guess that could be with anything, right, in life, not just the dyslexia side of things, but dyslexia is a special thing, right? If you can have support, then it can be amazing. If you don't have support, then it can be really, really tough. And so what was Dr. Helen Ross's life growing up?
I was a fairly middle of the road kid. Like I wasn't, like, I don't think we've got quite the same jock mentality that, you've got your cool kids and your sort of special bunnies and yep. I was very much a middle of the road kid. We were kind of grungers. in the
Okay.
early 90s. I'm 41, so we were very much into grunge, me and my friends. But like, in
Okay.
terms of academia, like, I mean, my worst grade at when you're 16 in England, you do a set of exams called GCSEs,
Okay.
General Certificate of Secondary Education. So compulsory state exams in government schools.
Mm.
I was going to say like state school, but you public school, you call them public school, don't you?
Yeah. Mm.
So yeah, my worst grade was an A. So yeah,
And are A's like, is it the
best.
reverse over there? Are A's F's?
No,
Is that what you're
no,
trying to say?
I got A stars and A's. So A star is like an A plus. So that was my straight A's and A stars at
Wow.
GCSE.
Okay.
I worked my backside off at school. I've always been a grafter because I have a brain like a goldfish. I just couldn't. I can't remember anything. There's a reason my book plan is on the wall because I can't remember stuff.
Yeah.
So then I kicked ass at GCSE. There's no question because I work bloody hard and I'm a grafter. I work incredibly hard. But then A levels kicked in. So when you're 16,
Okay.
you sort of choose subjects you're more interested in.
Mm.
And you might go to like college, which would be like community college, or you might stay on for school, which tends to be slightly more academic.
Okay.
So I stayed on school to do A levels, which generally lead to university. I did maths, physics, German, and general studies and further maths. So general studies is just like, I don't even know how to explain that. It's like I guess it would do the equivalent of your general education requirements, I suppose.
Yeah.
But maths and physics, I liked hitting stuff and I wanted to do engineering. So that was why I did maths and physics, and German was easy because I like talking, so it was fine. But A-level maths, I did like pure maths, which is just the really like existential weirdy beardy maths stuff.
Okay.
And I did mechanics, which is like physicsy maths, so it's all like F equals ma and Newton's laws and stuff. And at the time my surname was Newton, so you can imagine the crap that I got for that.
Yeah.
Newton's laws. At school. The lads were nice, but it was just like, shut up. Newton's laws, you can imagine. And but I couldn't read the questions because in A-level mechanics you have to read the question, extrapolate the concept, the problem from the question, and then draw a forces diagram 9 times out of 10 to see what's going on. And I was just like, I could read the words, decoding, could do it, couldn't make sense of the question. And my mum and my maths teacher, Mrs. McConaughey, Myton School legend, she and my mum put their heads together. I don't know, they had a chat and they worked out that Helen might be dyslexic. So they took me off to this town called Great Malvern, like in the hills on the way to Wales from Birmingham. It's beautiful, it's really pretty. But like properly in the bum end of nowhere. And I went to this big old Victorian house that was really dark. All I remember, I was 17 and it was just so dark, the room. And I had my dyslexia test and it came out that like my IQ, IQ is such a problematic concept, but I was bright as a button, like problem solving wise, but I had brain like a goldfish. My processing of information was barely within average ranges.
Really?
My memory was below average. So yeah, that's like a classic dyslexic, which explained why I can't remember stuff and my handwriting's awful and I can't read questions and I don't read.
Yeah.
And there's this pressure here, like, and it was the same when I was at school. Like my English teacher, when I was 16, Mr. Owen, he's so lovely. We're still in touch. He's just a really nice man. He was like,
Mr. Owen.
"Oh, Helen, you missed Mr. Owen." He was really fit as well. Like,
oh, nice, get it, boy.
yeah, my friends were like, "Hello, Mr. Owen." Great, but he's a lovely guy. He's lovely. And he was like, "Oh, you've got to do A-level English." I'm like, "No." But you read so much during school. I'm like, "No, Mr. Owen, I didn't read any of the books you told me I had to read at school." But you passed. I'm like, "Yes, because I listened to you and I wrote what you told me to write." I did. So, and there's pressure. God, the pressure around like kids must read for pleasure. It's a bee in my bonnet I've got at the moment that you have to teach kids to read for pleasure. No, you teach kids to read. They may or may not like it. They need to be able to do it in one form or another. And there was that pressure when I was at school. Yeah, it's
that's funny because it reminds me of. I never even thought about this before, but as a kid, I remember hearing all the time, "You got to read," from my parents. "You got to read, you got to read, you got to read." And I remember thinking like, I hate it and I can't do it. And then I
No,
felt
exactly that.
bad all the time. I was always just like, well, like, I guess because I don't read, I'm not the smartest kid. You know what I mean? Like little things
But
like that. That's funny.
but there's like, I need to actually do like a proper piece of writing around this. At some point, I'll find time. But like, there's like the notion that I'm terribly well read. It's so steeped in snobbery and like classism. If you're well read, it means you're clever. No, it just means you've read a lot of books.
Yeah.
You may also be clever, but
Yeah.
there's just such a snobbery around sort of for me the concept. I can't speak to other countries, but I know sort of in England where classism and snottiness and there's so much emphasis on reading, and you must read. You've got to be able to do it, but not everyone's going to like playing hockey. Not everyone likes equations, and Lord, if you are self-employed, you need to know how to do equations because you need to know how to use QuickBooks or Excel. And until you tell me that you have to do maths for pleasure, you have to be able to do maths. No one talks about maths for pleasure. Don't tell me that you must teach children to read for pleasure. Yes, reading, but not everyone's going to love it. Oh, proper got bee in my bonnet about me. I do like my
bonnet. I love that. I wrote that down too. A little beer in my bonnet. No, I haven't.
I'll teach you proper English.
You say a lot of things I don't know what you're saying, but I get the idea. But I've never heard that before.
You get annoyed about it. It like something that grates. It like grinds your gears.
Yeah, I love it.
Sorry.
No, it's awesome. Keep doing you. So you went to a scary Harry Potter castle, I feel like, and you got tested for dyslexia. And then you're like, oh, okay. So they're like, hey, you're genius level in that IQ, Helen. And you're like, I already know that. And then they're like, but your processing isn't awesome. Your memory is kind of rough. So like, as far as people listening that have dyslexia, is that like, what are some of those early on traits, that you maybe notice your parents might have noticed when you're a kid to be like, well, we should go all the way out in the buttware of nowhere and test her for dyslexia? Like, what were some of those things that?
I think for me, and I think what's really interesting, although yes, I know I'm clever cognitively, I know it. When I was at school, and even now, like I felt thick. Like, you're not clever. If you're thick, it means you're not clever in English. Like my flavour of English. So I felt really not very clever at school. There was always this idea, and my brother's the same because my brother's dyslexic as well. There was always this kind of underlying, I can't get my ideas out. And with me, like, and physics and maths, I think, because it's right, yes, no, right, wrong. At that level, it's yes or no, right or wrong answers. If you haven't, I couldn't kind of file the information into my head so that I could then draw it out again. So it's really, really tricky to sort of to make sense of things. I had to read things, and I had to read things aloud to hear them so that I could understand them at the same time. That just getting ideas in was really hard. And my teacher for maths when I was sort of 15, he was a one. He was a one. He told me I'd be lucky to get a C at these GCSE exams. I'm like, nah.
Ooh, yeah.
No, that's not happening. No, not having
Check
that.
me out.
I got an A.
A-star right here. Yeah.
I got an A, and it was like the best in the world. Oh, sorry. That's not polite. Don't do that.
I know what that one is, and that one's funny. You can do that. It doesn't mean anything over here. It's good.
It makes me laugh when people do that for victory. I'm like, that's not victory.
Yeah.
No, I think, but for me, and I think for a lot of kids, where you've got a kid who's kind of sort of on the right hand side of the Gaussian curve of life, so sort of bright, it's where they're really articulate verbally, and then you ask them to write down their ideas, or you ask them to. It's sort of exchanging information. It's whether it's getting information out and or information in, I think, is where it's very difficult, and it's where there's this big difference. And I've got in front of me open at the moment, I'm prepping an assessment for a kid who's got a very, very complex profile. Lots and lots of, just very difficult. And it looks like he's got a really tricky journey at school. And he's got these great ideas, cracking imagination, really lively, really engaging in the world around him, like thirst for life. Yeah. And then you ask somebody to sit down and write or read. And there's this kind of there's a physical tension, and I see it in myself. If somebody asks me to read, I'm like, I hate it. I will read, but I will actively read slowly. If I'm reading in public, it's almost less bad than reading on a one-to-one setting, because reading in public, you have to read slowly so that you're understandable. But yeah, it's the sort of, you see people's shoulders go tense, and like just the whole body language changes. So that's something you notice in kids, adults, just humans where they're dyslexic. And quite often it's word finding as well. Like poor Andy, bless him. If I want the soul at dinner time, I'm like, Andy, can you pass me that? And luckily, like, bless him, 15 years later, he knows what I'm on about.
He knows what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why is that though? Like, what is it? Because it's say that again. Level processing.
Verbal.
Oh, like, verbal. Gotcha. Yeah.
Verbal processing. So, like, as I understand it, and the best way I can think to explain verbal processing is kind of pulling information out your long-term memory, or putting it into your long-term memory from sort of active use. So it's, if somebody's telling you loads of stuff that you're supposed to remember, and it goes in one ear and out the other, or you might, that's sort of a short-term memory thing. But verbal processing, part of, as you're learning stuff, you're trying to put that into your long-term memory and keep it in your noggin. And where people have difficulty finding words, it's like where you're trying to find, you've got a pair of shoes, you've got one of them, you're trying to find the other one, you know it's kicking about in there, but you just can't find the bugger. And that's what verbal processing feels like. So for me, I'm just like, I can't find the word. And like, I had a meeting earlier today, and me and Andy kind of like ships in the night crossed at lunchtime in the kitchen just before.
Yeah.
Ships in the kitchen.
Yeah, I love that. That's cool.
He's like, oh, I've got this really exciting project that is sort of tentatively happening with a uni in the north of England. And he's like, what's it about? I'm like, I don't know, I can't find the words. And he knew, just don't push it, bless him. He's like, because I was tired. It was an intense meeting. It was lovely, but I was just like, I'm dead. I'm so tired. And I couldn't find the words. And it's you can't articulate yourself very well. It's so, for me, it's the most frustrating bit of dyslexia.
So that's good to hear, because I feel like for me, like, I mean, I've told this before, but I was 18. My parents, they took me to go get tested, and they were worried about me for, college and sitting around and being in rooms for a long time. And I did a mission. And so I was a missionary in Ecuador for 2 years in South America. And
that Mormon Latter-day Saints thing.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Exactly.
You have the little badge.
Yep. I was one of those dudes just knocking, getting my knuckles bloody.
We always ask them for tea when they come to our house, because they're so sweet.
Oh, that's very kind of you. You should. They work really hard, and it's
amazing.
It's a good thing. But man, they were worried because before you go on your mission, you go to this training center place and it depends on if you're learning a language or not. But I was learning Spanish, and so I had to be there for, I can't remember, it's like 9 weeks, 10 weeks, something like that. But it's every day for 12 hours, sometimes 10. I mean, you're sitting there for hours and hours and hours throughout the day and learning and studying. And my parents, I always got kicked out of class all the time in public school and growing up in high school. And my teachers loved me, but because I would always come afterwards and apologize, and I was always very
pain in the posterior to teach.
Yes, and but they would kick me out and be like, that they didn't like to send me out, but I was always interrupting. So my parents are like, dude, this guy can't sit. He can't sit still for 12 hours, 10 hours, let alone 2 hours, let alone 1 hour. And we got to go get him tested, and see, what's going on, because school was really hard for me. I would work my butt off for hours and hours and hours on a project or on a paper, and I'd get like a D, that's just how it was for me. I just didn't. But anyway, and so we got tested, and they said I had the reading level of a third grader as far as retention and comprehension. And I was 17. I was about to turn 18.
So you would, like a 9-year-old at the time? Third
grader? Yeah. Yeah, my daughter is in 3rd grade and she is 8, turning 9. Yeah.
8 or 9.
And
Yeah, year
so,
4.
yeah, you're spot on. So she, anyway, we went through all this reading remediation, like balancing on one foot, juggling. She was passing me things like to rewire. I don't know. Maybe it didn't work because
Oh yeah, yeah. There's I know what you mean.
this lady
Yeah,
was
there's a
old
thing.
school too. She was old school. But that was like a big thing for me. But
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't until about 5 years ago when I realized that dyslexia was so much more than just like sucking at reading and,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And the biggest thing for me is like finding the words. So everything you just said is like really, really cool to understand the verbal processing, the word finding, because I'm making up words all the time. We have a book of phrases that I've compiled, my wife and I, and then my old boss all the
Yeah.
time, because it's just like I'd make up, and I own it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like,
Yeah,
it is what it
likewise.
is. But what do you like? Is there anything that you recommend or that you have seen and to help young children and adults as far as to cope with that? I mean, I don't know if there's a solution to help you get better at word finding and processing, but you know what I
I
mean?
think, yeah, I think with stuff, if I'm doing like, if I'm sort of in an academic discussion or like a formal meeting type thing, quite often what I'll do is I'll make notes. Like, I'm not now because I don't need to because
Yeah.
this is a chat. Like, if I'm in a meeting where I'm gonna have to remember stuff, I'll sort of make notes because it slows my thoughts down. And quite often, if I've got I will double check. So one of the things, and I do this a lot. I'm working with an Israeli company, and I've got the bloke I work with. He's just lovely, and he's so patient. Bless him. Patience, patient people actually is really important.
Yeah.
And people not being turds and grumpy about stuff.
Yeah.
And he's not. He's lovely. But like quite often when I'm working with him, particularly because it's quite technical, a lot of what we do. So I'll repeat it back, and I'll just say, "Have I understood this?" And and often if it's with somebody who I'm not necessarily familiar with, I'm quite confident now in myself to just say, "Can you stop? I need a moment. Just let me process. Let me make sense of it." Because I had a meeting with a project team with this Israeli company, and there was a guy, and he was, I was like, he just kept talking, and I'm like, dude, I actually had to say, I'm really sorry. I need you to stop talking because I am trying to make sense of what you're saying. If you keep talking, I'm not making sense.
Yeah.
And the poor guy was lovely. He was mortified.
Felt so
I was
bad.
like, yeah, I'm not annoyed with you. I just need you to shut up.
I
And
didn't
I
breathe.
think that's, yeah, and I think sometimes for people, human beings with dyslexia, the time and just a bit of grace from people around you who, if they can see, because you get this glazed look on your face, don't you, where you just go, no, I've done. And if people are aware and pay attention to you, they should notice that. But also, it's just being brave enough sometimes to just say, can you just give me a moment, please?
Yeah.
Just like let me exist for a sec.
Oh man.
And
Yeah,
luckily,
that's big. That's hard.
it's
It's like a big thing for
really hard.
me. Yeah, it's like I feel like I'm getting to that point in my life finally as well, like in my professional career. And I finally put it on my LinkedIn, like dyslexia, this and that, and I'm owning it. But it takes time, right? Especially based on experiences that you've been through, right? Like in childhood, adulthood, if you've had some traumatic stuff, and whatever that is. But yeah, for these young kids, because that's really like, man, there's a kid that's in my neighborhood that you can tell. I mean, he can't even read. He's probably 14, 15. He has the hardest time. His parents do so much for him too. They go, they've tried to get a lot of reading remediation and a lot of different things for him. And he's getting better, but man, it's like,
if they need any advice, feel free to ping them my contact details.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I definitely will. And he's such a clever kid. He's such a stud. You know what I mean? Like, and he's such a happy, awesome dude. And he's smart. But it's like you put a book in front of him, and you think, man, who is like this kid's got some issues, But yeah, but it's just yeah. How do we continue to do what you're doing and teach people like, love yourself. Own it. It is what it is. You can do so many other things that are amazing, right? And it'll take time. But I think it's also, like you said, like teaching the world, like, hey, you don't have to always read book. Like, don't be a bookworm all the time, right? Like little things like that. That it's just like the
Yeah.
old school traditional, mentality where it's like,
it's broadening the sort of wider understanding of success as well, isn't it? Like, again, so much like certainly here, and I think probably fairly comparably in the States, like education. Well, you go to school, little school, medium school, big school, then you go to uni or college. That's success. You get your degree. But are you telling me like a plumber is not successful? Because if your toilet breaks on a Sunday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, who do you phone? You phone your plumber. They can charge you what they like. They can turn up or not. And they're skilled. Plumbers, sparky electricians, carpenters, trades are so skilled.
Yep.
And I think, and so many dyslexic people have got these really hands-on practical skills. If they're not necessarily sort of book smart, traditional academic smart, they will be clever and creative and have these amazing visual skills. And they'd be able to just look at an IKEA flat pack and it builds itself. That's the kind of level of, if only. But and I think for me, so much mental health stuff could be just stopped before you head it off at the pass. If people actually accepted that not everyone is necessarily going to be academic, or if they are, they might blossom at different times. But you tell me a plumber's not successful, because a plumber is incredibly skilled. They're gifted. They're an important contributor. You can't outsource plumbing because it's there, it's here, and it's now.
Yeah, you need it now.
So I think for me, so much. Yeah, if we accept a more holistic model and understanding of success, and stop the plonkers at the top, because everyone here, we've all been to like Oxford or Cambridge and do PP politics, philosophy and economics, darlings, or Oxbridge darlings. I read this because they don't study it. They always say, I read PPE at Oxford.
Yeah.
Now you studied it.
Yeah.
I didn't read mechanical engineering. I hit things.
I
and read a few books, but I hit things. I didn't read it. I studied it and hit things. And so there's so much, like, it's a very narrow view of successes. And
so
I think
true.
If that was expanded, a wider range of people were in power at the top, then everything would filter down. Just put me in charge, basically.
Just put Dr. Helen Ross at the top, and then we're good. Come on.
I mean, to be fair, I'm not going to be any worse than some of the plonkers we've got in charge here.
Hey, listen, you could come here and anyway, that's for another day.
I'd get you spelling properly.
Yeah.
Driving on the top side of the road.
I don't know. I still have a hard time driving, so maybe it'd be easy for me over there.
I drove in Texas. I drove from Houston.
Oh yeah, because you were down there for the
IDEA conference.
Yeah.
Houston's an experience, isn't it?
Right. Houston's crazy.
That's a bit bonkers.
Yeah.
San Antonio. Everyone said San Antonio is nice. I'm like,
You don't like San Antonio?
No, I didn't like it. It reminded me of Coventry.
I've
or
never
Berlin.
been to Coventry.
It's like San Antonio. It's like Rio as well. Rio de Janeiro. They're all a bit similar. They're all 1960s brutalist.
Huh.
It's like
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy the heat down there and the humidity? Like Houston is so hot.
San Antonio. It was freezing, literally. We were there for that week where it was the snowstorms.
Yep.
But we had one day in San Antonio in November where it was like about 28 degrees, like Celsius. So
right.
I couldn't tell what that is in old money, but like proper warm. I was like, woohoo! It's warm. But all the buildings, all the glass in all the buildings was tinted. I'm like, so dark inside these buildings. Why is? And then I was like, oh, because it's hot and they don't want the sun. So,
they got to keep it cool
place.
Somehow. Yeah, it's crazy. Texas is different.
It's weird. I'm glad I've been.
Yeah.
I didn't tell people I was veggie. I didn't say anything about guns.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I did not vote Tory. I was very careful what I said.
Yeah.
it's weird. Like, a dude bought me dinner.
Okay.
I just went for a drive, and sitting at the bar, like this weird thing where you just don't do that in the UK. It's just not a thing in the same way. So I just get my dinner at the bar. I just had a sandwich, and this bloke's like, "Can I buy you dinner?" I was like, "What?" I wasn't offended. I was just like,
yeah.
What? Why? And it was one of these where I was like, no, but genuinely, I just didn't understand. And in the end, I was like, if I say no, it's really awkward. But if I say yes, it's really awkward. So in the end, I was like, my husband and my boy, yes, you may buy me dinner. Yes, my husband. And I spent the whole time talking about, yeah, Texas was.
That's awesome.
I'm glad.
He's probably just some old, just being a good old Texas boy. Yeah. I mean, who knows? I've never done that at a bar offering dinner. So if I did, it'd probably be for.
When I say dinner, I mean, it was lunch like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I say if it's not breakfast, I call it dinner.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like eating. I was not being unsalubrious, but I was just like.
Yeah, a little weird. I'm gonna eat and run, dine and dash. That's what we call it.
Oh, I pegged it.
Peace. I love that. Yeah, this is crazy stuff. So I think just as far as some of the things that you've been saying right now, can you tell us about, so in your career, in your profession and what you're doing, I mean, you talk so much about dyslexia, you've got a lot going on. What are like your main focuses? Like as an example, like with this Israeli company, you're talking like you're consulting for them, and what are you doing? And are you okay?
Yeah, I had a hair in my mouth. Sorry.
Let me just pull this hair out.
Hello, people. Yeah, no, I had a hair in my mouth.
Yeah.
I'm doing some work at the minute with this Israeli company. It's some really cool tech. I've got a few. What's the word? Irons in the fire.
Irons in the fire. There you go.
Yeah, my husband reminded me that. So like, a few things sort of hopefully over the next few weeks that will come to fruition with them. I'm keeping that quite close to my chest at the moment, just because it needs to stay close to my chest. It will go live at some point in due course. But I've done work with them for the last year and a half, looking at tech, and I've learned bajillions. And they've still not paid for me to go to Israel, which I find rude.
That's very
England's
rude.
Cold. Sunshine.
You should call that dude in Texas and see if he'll pay for you to go to Israel. You know what I mean? He might.
Yeah, it's not seedy at all, Mr. Spender. I've not seedy at all. I'm sure like Andy's pretty chilled, but I feel like there'd be an objection. No, I've done a really cool bit of consultancy. I've done some lovely work around well-being with a lady called Beate Weinbauer. She's based in Vienna.
Okay.
But we've met a few times in the UK. She's awesome. And the work around, she does brilliant stuff around sort of well-being, dyslexia, mindfulness and stuff. And actually I found her, she's been so inspirational. She's just amazing. She's lovely. So that has sort of inspired me and given me a bit of a boot up the bum to get in touch with a uni in the north of England. Again, it's all very early days. Everything is like so early days at the moment. But I had this meeting with a project team there where I've put together a brief, and I thought it was a bit pap, but they were like, no, it's really good. I'm like, seriously? Okay. So I'm probably going to do some work with the uni on sort of how dyslexia and well-being or lack thereof intersect. And we're going to look at ways that we can support schools to big up kids that are wobbling with their mental health.
Wow.
I do dyslexia assessments as well. So I have a sort of poacher turned hunter in that I assess kids for dyslexia and dyscalculia and things. I'm sort of halfway house between a teacher and an educational psychologist.
Okay.
There's that. I don't know if there's an equivalent. I can't quite work out where I fit in the American scale. I don't think there is an equivalent.
Okay.
So that's really cool. I love that because you get to give families answers.
That's really cool.
Really cool. It's really cool. And
so,
I do stuff with go on, sorry.
You do stuff with what?
The British Dyslexia Association as well. I'm co-vice chair of that. So that's pretty cool.
That's so cool. I mean,
lucky. I'm so lucky.
I mean, you really are. And everyone is lucky to have, and I'm not trying to be cheesy here, but to have someone like you that is trying to, again, it's such a weird thing. I don't see a lot of, there's just not a lot of people that talk about dyslexia. There's not a lot of people that from what I've seen, right? And I feel like maybe in your world, like you're always around it, so there probably are. But like
Yes.
when I say what I've seen, I work in sales and technology. No one talks about it at all. In you can't find it on LinkedIn from anyone like out here.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And so it's, I mean, I've only made a few posts and I've had so many people DM me and be like, I can't tell you how pumped I am to see someone get a little vulnerable and talk about the dyslexia. And it made me want to go get tested. And I've had 3 people in the last month that have reached out, and I've only posted once in the last month. And it was just like, hey, I'm dyslexic. Thank you so much. All the answers now, like it all makes sense, like my whole life. And these are like 30, 40-year-old adults, you know? So really, really, really crazy, but it's cool that you're in this like deep in it, you know what I mean? And you're working hard at it. So like when you make money, Dr. Helen Ross, when you're making money, like with, you know, Israeli or Well-Being, is that the name of the company or is that the name of the initiative?
No, the company in Israel is Orcam. They're cool. They make like go gadget tech.
Gotcha. But then there's the woman that you're working with out of Vienna.
Her name is Beate Weinbauer. So Beate is Beate. I think it's Latin. It means beauty, I think. And then Weinbauer means wine builder, and it's WEINBAUER. She is lovely, and she's got, I can't think what her company's called, but she's written a book and it's all around mindfulness. And she hit me up off LinkedIn a couple of years ago. I couldn't even tell you when. She's lovely, and we sort of we connected over like a cup of tea in Birmingham, UK, at the Dyslexia show a couple of years ago, and just
that's so cool. Just hit it off.
Properly. She's so lovely, and she had a bit of work that she needed some help with, so we've done some really nice collaboration with that. It's lovely. That's still cool. Not got around to, I need to go to Vienna. I like Vienna. I love Vienna. It's beautiful. So at some point I need to be like, we need a team meeting.
Yeah, let's do this. We got to go out. We got to strategize. It's important.
In Vienna, because it's nice and lives.
Yeah.
In Vienna.
In Vienna.
What's it called? Over Sachertorte. Actually, the cake. Oh, it's cake.
Sachertorte?
Sachertorte.
Okay.
Torta's cake. It's like chocolate cake.
Okay. I love chocolate cake.
Good.
That's cool. So, and I was asking because it's like you're doing so much. And so like you're freelancing, you're consulting with Beate Weinbauer. you're giving.
It's easy to say.
It's not easy. You're working together. You're collaborating. You work on the Dyslexia Association for England. Is that what you said? Right? I mean, for British, right? Thank you. Word processing. Hey-oh. And then also, geography. But so you're doing all this. And you're giving assessments. I mean, what's like your main focus, and what are the things that I mean, I feel like you're probably getting tons of value out of all of this, but what is the main thing that you're doing right now as far as your initiatives, your focus on?
So to pay the mortgage, the main regular thing to pay the mortgage is dyslexia assessments. But in terms of workload, I'm split about half and half between sort of project researchy work and
that's so cool.
And what's the word, assessment? So it's about half and half. I'm also going to set some form of clone farm because I do need a few spare ones of me. So I'm quite tired.
See, you think out of the box. That's what I'm talking about. That's smart. I love that.
But it's not. Seriously, nobody needs more of me. That's a terrifying thought.
This world would be very blessed, but also there'd be some people that would be a little like, what's going to happen here? I don't know. It's too much energy. Continue. There's too much energy in this world.
It's insane. Entropy increases, chaos reigns. But I think, a lot of the dyslexia work I do, the more broader stuff, like I don't get paid for, but I do consultancy stuff.
Okay. So
that I've got a few pennies sort of. The aim is, in due course, to have a few pennies kicking around in the bank so that I can do more stuff for free. Yeah. Because, my mum and dad, like, I grew up in Royal Leamington Spa, darlings. It's nice. I did not have a bad upbringing. I'm very, very fortunate. Like my whole life has been it's very white bread. Dad worked at IBM, so we had a lovely living. Like
Okay,
my parents
nice.
were very, very lucky as a kid. And mum and dad could pay for me to have a private dyslexia assessment. A lot of people can't. So my aim in due course, when I've got, well, we've got subsidence in the house at the moment, so it's sort of slightly literally falling down. Once that's fixed, and once our lives are a little bit settled and little dudes at school and whatnot, then I do really want to just try and do as much as I can more for free, because it matters.
That's really cool. I love
That's
that. That's really, really cool. When someone comes to you for a dyslexia assessment, I think this would probably be important for people to understand and to hear, because it's actually very interesting. So in the last year, I've had, I think it's been a handful. I mean, I'm just so surprised because I've only made a couple posts on LinkedIn, but it's just the need of adults, right? And like peers to me in the technology, the SaaS industry, software as a sales, right? Like, or service is these people.
You're in the SaaS industry.
The SaaS industry, because I'm sassy.
Especially for you, you're so sassy.
I'm sassy. I'm sassy.
I like you've got gumption, you've got oomph. That's a good thing.
Gumption. I like that word. Never heard that word before. Just kidding. That's a joke. That's a joke. So listen, I think it's crazy because people have asked me. I've had a handful of people reach out and ask me about, like, where do I get tested? And so I've Googled and looked for different places in the area. There's not a lot. First of all, I've noticed. Like really not a lot. I was surprised. The lady that did mine, Pat Rosenberg, shout out. What up? She is retired now. And how rude. She's awesome. But I mean, when I got tested, this was when I was 18. I'm 36 now. And I remember then I felt like she was super old. So I don't know how she's doing right now, but I hope you're doing good, Pat. But what does that entail? Like, what happens with an assessment when you are trying to, basically determine if someone's dyslexic or not? What does that process look like?
So, for me, because I'm a specialist assessor, that is my professional title with this hat on. We have particular sort of tests we have to look at, but generally, in England and Wales, Scotland, I don't know, in honesty. I don't know if the Scottish criteria are different. But in England and Wales, you do like what they call an IQ test. So but it's problem solving. So it's you do verbal problem solving. So like defining words, linking words, making connections between ideas and words. And then you do an equivalent with pictures and non-verbal stuff. And that's like a baseline. IQ is problematic, but that is a very different philosophical discussion around ontology and class and a load of other stuff. Do this problem solving thing, and you'd look at processing as well. So you'd look at ideally visual processing, so how you link pictures, make sense of pictures, manipulate them in your head, and then do something with them.
Okay.
So quite often you'd be matching symbols and doing code breakers type things to do that kind of thing. You'd look at verbal processing, so that can be done where you're shown a picture or shown numbers or letters, and you've just got to read them out as quickly as you can. Then you'd look at phonics, so how you deal with sound, which is you'd sort of hear bits of words. So it's quite a crude example. You'd hear the word bird and you'd hear the word bath. You've got to put them together to make the word bird bath, and you get smaller and smaller chunks. So you might have in I've got a printer on my hand, so you put in together to make the word printer, and that looks at your phonological awareness about how you play with sound. Because if you're playing with sound is wobbly, you're not going to be able to link sounds together, blend them, or you might do it wrongly. And if you do that wrongly, then you're going to link the letters wrongly, so spelling and reading can get really tricky. And because England is such an opaque and stupid spelling system, and British spelling is just even more nonsense. I don't often compliment America. American spelling, at least American spelling is a little bit less silly. So you look at phonics, you look at memory as well, so holding on to verbal information, because stuff can go in one ear and out the other for dyslexics, and that's around instructions as well. So holding information, manipulating it, the bit of your brain where you do mental maths, where you hold ideas and try and write a sentence at the same time. And so that kind of looks at if you've got any wobbles, areas of strength, areas of weakness. And if you've got an area of weakness in your phonics, your sound processing, and your memory and or verbal processing as well, then you'd look at attainment, so academic achievement. You'd look at reading comprehension, reading speed, reading accuracy, writing speed, spelling, and then kind of general written composition, so writing your own prose. And you'd look and see if there's kind of an impact on your academic achievement that relates to a weakness in your cognitive profile. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, and if there is, you end up with like a graph that's a bit like a ski slope. It's here, there, and everywhere. Most profiles, a neurotypical person would have a fairly steady attainment and cognitive profile. It'd be sort of all fairly similar. Whereas a person with a specific learning difficulty, there's areas of strength and weakness that just mean it looks like Super Mario Brothers or something.
That's crazy. So, I mean, but if this might be a silly question, but if it's like that's, just up and down on that chart, right? Like versus just steady all the way across. I mean, I guess when it's up, right? Does that mean that that's going to be pretty awesome, right? So
yeah, and you can play to these strengths. When you've got a kid who feels like they're rubbish at school, what you can say is no, because look at that.
That's cool.
No, you're brilliant, and that's what's such a privilege when you've got kids who just feel absolutely fine, and you say
that's
no.
Cool. That is cool. I don't remember that with my assessment. I don't remember, and it was a long time ago, but I don't remember. I just remember feeling so stupid because it was, I mean, and she was awesome, but it was, and I'm sure she was very like empowering or whatever, like, hey, you've got this, but I don't remember seeing like, hey, you actually can be really good at this. And again, like for me, it was, I just thought I was really bad at reading, and there could have been a lot more because it was like information overload and I had to go to her place, the office, couple times a week, and we did a lot of different things, like I said, the juggling things we did this. She had this game on the computer and a lot of different like matching things and just certain things, but over and over and over and over and over again. But yeah, that I get, that's got to be so rewarding to be able to say, hey, like you feel stupid and there's some lows here. That doesn't mean you're stupid. That's not everyone's going to be but look at these highs. Like, look at this. You will excel at the arts, or like, you're so creative. You are, you entrepreneur or whatever it is, right? That's got to be really, really cool.
Oh, it's brilliant. Like I assessed a kid a couple of Saturdays ago, and she's a clever little sausage, really clever little sausage, but she called us, her mum said when she was 2, she called herself an artist. I was like, fair, okay. And obviously I'm in my office, my house across the way. So at lunch, I was like, I'm just going to go in the kitchen and find some food. I came back into the office at lunchtime, and this lass was drawing, and her pictures were sublime. They were so refined. They were such, just really fine art. Like not nerd, but like beautiful,
just
really
beautiful, detailed,
gorgeous. Yeah, I think they were animal skulls. I can't remember, but they were just beautiful drawings. I'm like, wow. And all her sort of scores pointed to this visual, creative little sausage, and she'll be fine.
That is so cool.
And it's such a privilege. And one of the nice things is you get to say to the kids, like, it will take time to filter and work its way down to your ankles, but you're clever. And I take that from this assessment. Yes, you might have dyslexia. So is Richard Branson, and he's minted.
Yeah.
Like, and he's a successful chap, and he does well.
Yeah.
But you're clever, and look at what your strengths are, and like, there needs to be more of that.
That's really cool.
In the world.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. Yeah. Just the empowering. I mean, I coach lacrosse to little kids, like 10-year-old kids.
Oh my gosh. You're insane.
I'm crazy. No, it's not, it's just lacrosse. But it's cool to see how you get certain people and these kids where it's like, all you need to do is compliment them and like find true value in them and help them understand that. And then just repeat it, right? Like, I mean, back growing up, there's a lot of, you get kind of the old school parenting out here where it's and probably everywhere, right? Maybe where it's just like, I'm not going to compliment you all the time. Like you got to keep, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep working, and if I don't get after you, then that means you're doing something right. But I think the kids really love that and need it and need to know that they're
praise the good.
Yeah.
And we with our little D, we're like, well done when he's good, but when he's a plonker, we tell him don't be a plonker.
Yeah,
But plonker's like a silly person. Like don't be daft. Like come on.
Yeah, we call our kids buttholes sometimes. So,
we call.
Yeah, it's all right.
I call him a plonker. You can get away with saying a plonker's like a silly person. It's not a horrible.
Okay, a plunker. Man, Helen, we gotta hang out. So
go to Ohio. I'm going to Ohio. Oh, I got accepted to do a poster presentation in Ohio, so I'm going.
Are you kidding me?
No.
When is that?
The 12th to the 14th of October at the IDA conference. I'll be loitering with lots of intent, and I'll loiter. I can loiter with like an angry face, I'm sure.
I'm writing that down. October. Okay. Oh, that's awesome. Ohio. That'd be cool if it was in California or something.
Like Honolulu, for goodness sake. Ohio, even I've heard the phrase flyover country.
Yeah, that's true. It is. Yeah, they got a lot of good sports programs though. They're hard workers out there, a lot of athletes.
Yes.
Do you care about that?
I have no concept.
A lot of wrestlers. A lot of good programs. So
I believe you.
Well, that's awesome. I'm excited because you're doing a lot of speaking too, like on panels and things like that, aren't you? Like, have you been invited to certain things like that?
I'm speaking. I was supposed to speak. There was a conference that was going to be in Cardiff in Wales on the 7th of September, which is actually my parents' wedding anniversary. Oh. But I think it might be moving, so I might actually be able to go and see Mum and Dad.
Nice.
That's in November. I don't really know. There's various things.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure you've got so many irons in the fire, as they say. I love that, man. Okay, so I know that we're wrapping up here, but I think so. I mean, as far as the assessments go, what do people need to like? If I have a kid who I'm sure is dyslexic, and one day I want you to I would love for you to meet with her and whatever. Like, what do people have to do? Is it just show up and then you just take them through the process? And how long does it take?
It's
good for people to know.
If it's just dyslexia here, now the frameworks might be different, and I would imagine state by state, I don't know. But in England and Wales, an assessment, full diagnostic assessment takes, the testing time's about 3.5 hours-ish, depending on the kid. Then you build in break time, wriggle time, toilet time. I don't want to do it time, because kids sometimes need to breathe. And to get an assessment privately, you phone me up. Or you phone an educational psychologist up. There are like school districts, our local authority is a school district. There are people that work for local authorities that do assessments, but they haven't generally got capacity to do the whole thing. It's just a resourcing issue. So you'd get like a sort of light assessment that would look at tendencies. And I would imagine it's where kids get IEPs.
Okay.
That kind of thing.
So when you say like a light assessment, there's more. So because dyslexia, there's so much. Oh man, what is the book that I read forever ago? It's so hard for me to read. It's so boring, but it's so insightful. It's The Dyslexic Advantage. Have you ever heard of that book?
I've got a copy of it upstairs and I haven't read it.
Oh,
I had dinner. What's the name of the author? I think I had dinner with him in Birmingham.
I can't remember his name, but man, it is hard for me to. But man, I've listened to it as well. So I bought the audiobook, and the thing is it's just packed full of information, and so it's like you could be dyslexic. My wife could be dyslexic. She's not, but like we could have many different like strengths and weaknesses from dyslexia. Right. And they could be very different. And so in that book, it goes through a lot of that. And it's like a capital N versus a lowercase n, and this is what, I don't know. Like, I'm not doing it any justice. I think it's amazing what they did, and the book that
I
they
did
wrote.
have dinner with the bloke as well. I
Did
sat
you?
opposite him at dinner in March. Yeah, he's lovely.
Oh.
Brock, he's lovely. I've never read the book, and I'd had a few jars, so yeah.
Yeah,
Such a nice
I would love
bloke.
to hear your thoughts on that, because when you say like a light assessment versus a deeper assessment, like what does that entail?
Just less. So you would, like, local authority, you test phonological processing, they do attainment, and they might look at processing speed, but it's just they don't do
Okay.
all the problem solving. They just don't do as much because they haven't got capacity and time.
Interesting. But
So
because what I'm asking is like, at the end of the day, it's not like what you're saying, right? Is there's dyslexia and there's people that aren't dyslexic. And so if you do a light assessment, it's like, okay, yeah, you're dyslexic. But if you do a deep assessment, it's like, yeah, you're dyslexic, but do you give more information? Like there's some good things to learn from it.
The light assessments, it's more like a screener. So you're not allowed to write that somebody has dyslexia from that. You're not allowed.
Gotcha.
I wouldn't be allowed because you haven't done the requisite testing. But you're looking for tendencies. So it's much more of a sort of functional needs assessment to look at what might need to be done in class.
Gotcha.
It has a purpose. It has a place. And our local authority here, they're so good. They do everything they can. But yeah, I think in an ideal world, when I'm in charge of everything and everyone has free chocolate forever, I think in an ideal world, local authorities, school districts would have the capacity to do like a proper assessment for kids. They'd have enough resources, bodies, people, just space, capacity, pennies, all of it, to do proper neurodiversity assessments, because dyslexia is so rarely like alone. And you shouldn't have to do like one dyslexia assessment and then do a dyscalculia assessment when you can I do piggyback them together. I so often end up doing both. I'm qualified to do both at the same time, because otherwise you end up doing these intelligence tests. You do everything twice, apart from where you could just do an addendum of maths. I say that flippantly, it's not flippant, but and I would imagine it's something fairly similar in the States. I don't know. I don't know enough about the frameworks in America.
No, but that makes sense though. I think the dyscalculia, I can't even say the word.
No, why do they make the word so hard to say?
It's so hard. But that one too, because that's leaning more towards like, is that the math side of things?
Yeah, math,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I failed math in college 4 times before I barely passed it. So in college, like, and it was basic math, but anyway, so I'm maybe sign me up for that one too. But man, okay, well that's so interesting. I would love to again, thank you so much for your time. But I want to know, like, I guess my final 2 questions, as far as, you know, where you're at right now, like what are some big things that we can look out for coming down the road? I know you got something behind you there, you know, a little book, maybe a little libro, but like, what are things that you're doing? And then also just like recommendations for people that have kids that have dyslexia, or they might have dyslexia in the workplace. Like what can you say to everybody?
So I would say, if you think your kids are dyslexic, have a look at the IDA, like the local, what are they called? What do you guys call them? Chapters. Each state has chapters of the International Dyslexia Association that only exists in America. Just saying. Yes, that was a bit big. Contact them, because they'll know the frameworks in your state. I don't know whether it varies like county to county. Not a clue. But I know here it does, so it probably does there too, because we seem to follow you guys sort of structure-wise. If you want practical ways around what to do about dyslexia, the IDA Dyslexia proper big website has loads of really helpful tips that they're aimed at an American audience. And obviously we are culturally, we do speak the same language, but we also don't speak the same language.
No.
So there's some really good things there. For workplace stuff and also for parents, there's a charity called Succeed with Dyslexia that is a British-based one. They're affiliated with Scanning Pens. And Scanning Pens is a lovely company. They're based just down the road from me. They happen to be based just down the road from me, but they're lovely. And Succeed is a really nice charity. They've got outstanding resources. the British Dyslexia Association, there's loads of really, really lovely resources for parents and teachers. They both those organisations have some really good workplace stuff as well. I know Succeed's got lots of free training. I think the BDA does as well. I'm trying to think. Made by Dyslexia, which is Kate Griggs.
Griggs, yeah.
I've never met her. I'm dying to meet her. I need to somehow engineer coinciding with her because I think she's amazing.
Yeah.
And she used to go to a school that's not far down the road from me as well. So her charity Made by Dyslexia is really, really good. They've got the most wonderful report that they did in 2018 that is all about the strengths.
Yeah.
They're places to go for help and ideas and stuff, free stuff. Stuff that's coming out for me. Well, I've got a book that
let's hear about you, because that's all really good. I just wrote all that down. That's super helpful.
No, that's okay. So I can't remember what I wrote my book proposal about, so I will actually need to turn around and look.
Nice.
So I'm looking at kind of dyslexia over the years. So like from 0 to about 18, sort of and how it looks in little kids, how it looks in primary school children. So like littlies, medium ones, and then as you work up through school. So what dyslexia looks like, what you can do about it. I am going to be over the next couple of months hoping to find people to interview and talk to about it. They don't have to be British based. It can be anybody, but sort of parents, teachers and kids about their journeys and stuff. I haven't quite on my hit list to do over the next few weeks is actually refine what I want from what kind of people I'd like and what I want to ask people about their journeys so that it's sort of coherent.
That is awesome.
So I've got to get it to the publishers by the beginning of September next year. So the timeline is broken down month by month, task by task. I'm so sad. Another thing, hopefully, if the gods and the stars align, then I've got a really, really cool project coming up with this uni in the north of England, and hopefully a bit more stuff with Orcam. Hopefully, but that's watch the space with that. What else have I got? I don't know. Just cool stuff. Like I get to do cool stuff.
I love that. Okay. And
I'm going to come to America and take over.
Yeah, you're going to take over the world, starting with America, and please come and do that.
As long as you have crumpets,
like tea and crumpets.
Well, some people have tea, but yes. Oh, you're flashing. That sounded so wrong.
I don't know what's going on with my lights.
You're flashing. That's so wrong.
I'm going to get a seizure or something. I'd stand up, but I'm not wearing any pants. I'm just kidding.
I was like, see, pants, right? Pants are not the same as trousers.
Yeah, I don't know. We can probably end it there.
Okay.
Dr. Helen Ross, the best. You are so awesome. I love what you're doing. This is crazy. Giving me a headache. I'm so excited to read your book and to see what you're doing. And so I'm going to push a lot of people your way because I'm getting so many people reaching out about assessments. So let's keep chatting. But thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, hey, that's it. And then I think I press stop and then it just stops. This is so annoying. Hey.
It's like...
Yeah, I'm in the club. I'm in the discotheque. Let's see. So I just...